So welcome back everybody to another great episode of the MILPA show. Today we're hosting two great individuals. But before we get started, and introduce them, Rosario, do you have any updates or what would you like to announce who's here?
All right, folks, thank you so much for being here. This is Rosaura from the Milpa Show. And today I want to introduce our guest, Nick Musni, who is a program coordinator from Agents of Change. And we have Edgar Ernesto Ibarra Gutierrez, who's a programs and leadership coordinator at Milpa. And with that, I'll pass it back to Arturo for gifts and baggages.
Yeah, so as you all see, we got two great individuals as guest speakers. And so just to kind of be more in community with one another and understand, a little bit more about our daily lives and acknowledge that we all are ordinary people, doing extraordinary things, if you know what I mean. So we're just going to begin with just talking about gifts and badges, it's the centering ourselves and getting ready for the plática. And so for those that are tuning in that don't know what a gift and baggage is, it's a brief introduction. A gift is something that you're excited to share with others, and the baggage is something that you're carrying on your shoulders, right? That's weighing you down. They just want to let go of, and there's a space for us to kind of again, be in community. And just to be an example, is to provide the first, round of gifts and badges. A gift at this moment is, again, we have a day of life, a day to just be in community with one another, a day to just enjoy what we have, you know what I mean? As the baggages, I would say the week is gone. I wish I had more time during the week, do more things, but the week is over. It's time to relax, enjoy the weekend as much as we can, you know what I mean? So that's my gifts and badges. And I'll go ahead and pass it down to Edgar.
Yeah, without a doubt, y'all. Once again, it's Edgar Ernesto Ibarra Gutierrez. I say my name that way just, to represent both sides of my family, my mom, my dad, and, in their journeys and their family's journey into it, and coming over here all the way down to the little town of Watsonville in California. But baggage, y'all, to be honest, I don't really got a baggage or anything like that. I've shared with some of y'all. I've had a messed up shoulder, but it also puts it in perspective for me where I'm young. I like to be active. Even amongst this whole COVID, I actually was going hard and just trying to stay really physically active. But the balance, the balance that we need to strike as far as our mind, body, and soul, it's something to always be mindful of. And for myself, that's what I catch myself doing is just okay, slow down a little bit, Edgar, and but just keep going. It's a minor baggage, not something big. A gift, though, in general, lots of gifts. It's Friday. It's something to just reflect on everything that's happened this week. It's happened this month. Many things have happened in our area. From COVID to the fires, and but also too, all the many blessings and how people have stepped up to help each other out. From the folks that are running away from the fires to the folks who are out here making sure that that some of those who are most vulnerable in that community are actually being served. And specifically, those who are homeless, those who are system impacted or formerly incarcerated, and those who are undocumented. And there's always going to be champions. So the gift is all those people who are putting it down for them. So I'll say that much. Palabra.
Muchas gracias, Edgar. Want to go next, Nick?
Yeah, thank you, Arturo. Just want to say thank you to Milpa for inviting me. I'm very excited to be here. So I'd say, a gift is, I was just telling Osara that my brother and I, for my birthday on Tuesday, we started a big ride from Long Beach to San Diego. So I'm actually here in San Diego now. So it's just a beautiful gift just to be out in the open air and, move my body, as Edgar was saying, and try to push it to the limits. The baggage from that is I'm really sore and exhausted, but, also thankful and recognizing my privilege and that freedom, talking about balance, thinking about, my commitment to the work of, folks, our farm workers who are essential, who can't take time off right now, as well as folks who are incarcerated who can't enjoy that open air that I did on my bike ride. It's just, having those things in mind, but taking the time I need to kind of regenerate and replenish myself to move forward with that work and advocating for those peoples is also, some kind of a mixture of a gift and a baggage there. But excited to be back and continue this work.
That's so cool. Thank you both for sharing, and Arturo as well. And I would say for myself, gifts and baggage, I would say that I'm just feeling tired, and I think that's just from the week. And I'm very excited that it's Friday and that the weekend is here and almost. And definitely a gift. I've complained about him before, but Frijol, he's roaming around right now. He's my roommate's cat. And he's like hella funny. He's just like a funny little fella. And sometimes like I'll be hella annoyed, and then I'll start playing with him. Like the other day I was just playing with him, like running around like a kid. And we're basically playing like hide and seek and being weirdos. So that was really fun. You know, animals are really fun. So I would say he's a gift. And with that, we're going to get started with the questions. So with that, we can get started with the questions. And just in general, like, feel free to share, how are you doing today in the midst of everything that's happening with the fires, the pandemic, and just like the global fight for human rights that is happening. And Nick, if you want to take it away, and then Edgar, you can pick it up after him.
Yeah, I mean, I love that question, because I think, you know, it's both the personal and the political, you know, kind of our internal check-in versus our community check-in and wider global community check-in. And I think those things are inseparable. And I think, you know, and I think it's two sides of the coin for me. It's like I feel energized and, you know, just inspired by the movement and the work of others to continue in this fight and join in the struggle. Folks like MILPA, Pause the Calls, you know, so many folks locally and across our globe, Black Lives Matter, of course, so energized by them. But, you know, at the same time, you know, it comes from, you know, deep roots of systemic violence and trauma, and the work itself, because of that, could be exhausting, both mentally, physically, and emotionally. So, you know, I take both of those, you know, I think as a gift, because one fuels the other. And, you know, again, all these things are kind of interconnected and inseparable. So, yeah, so overall, though, I think it's a positive thing to see both myself and our communities moving in the right direction. And I hope that this momentum continues, and we won't stop until we see justice.
Rosada, can you repeat the question one more time, please?
Yeah, más que nada, how are you doing? But also, how are you doing in the context of the fires, the pandemic, and just the general global fight for human rights that's occurring? That has been going on for a long time, but especially now, there's a lot going on.
No, definitely. And just thank you for that. But for myself, I'm doing good. And I don't say it in the most cliche way. Like, literally, I have everything at home. I have my family. I have my mom, my two sisters. They're in the best health as possible. I got my little doggy named Toby, you know, and he's he's turned 13 this month, you know. So it's like I said, I really believe in not only that, but I belong to Acalpuli Milpa, where it's like, man, I really like the support system that is needed is there, and I've actually received it since the moment I walked through those doors. I know, and I go way back with a lot of the folks there. So, like, I'm doing good. I really say that, and I've like I said, and I don't just say it just to say it, like, oh, I'm doing good. It's like, nah, I really enjoy everything, even though amongst all the chaos that's going on, you know, the uncertainty that has people on edge and full of anxiety. You know, I'm doing good. This is not the first time I've actually experienced having to shelter in place. We just call that a little bit different. We call that solitary confinement when I was incarcerated. So, you know, having to stay at home and having to navigate things a lot from home is actually relatively easy for me. I actually don't find this as very restrictive as other folks might think, but it's in, like, once again, I'll bring it back, is there's so many blessings, you know, amongst all this, you know, and I always try to look for that. I always try to look for the blessings. It's too easy to fall upon all the negativity and the problems, right? But and as far as just like the COVID, the fires, it's crazy, you know. Our life, everything is just gonna be crazy. But I was reminded yesterday by it was a simple term that was shared with us by this professor. He's teaching us Nahuatl, you know, an indigenous language to Mexico, and Yolik, you know, Yolo meaning heart, and the Yolik aspect is to slow down. It's like it's a reference to slow down, right? And that reference to slow down, but it's a little bit different, which it's go at the pace of your heart, you know, go at the pace of your heart. And I think with this COVID-19 and these fires keeping us home inside our home has allowed us to really reflect on everything that's happening. We've seen, you know, the murder of George Floyd, the Black Lives Matter movement take place and spread worldwide, and a lot of people are watching this from home. Young kids, you know, are watching it from from their phone, right, and their hands, and they're processing a lot of these things that are taking place. So I think we're in a moment right now as a movement where we're actually reflecting. And a lot of the times in indigenous cultures, the winter was time for reflection of everything that happened in the summer and the spring. You know, they went inside of the home because it was winter. It was snow all over the place. So here at this moment, we have no other choice but to reflect, to face a lot of those internal fears, you know, that we might have of the world as well. Check our own biases, our own racisms, you know, that we've been internalized, you know, taught to internalize growing up. So I think we're in an opportune time right now in this moment in history where it's critical mass shit. Like literally, like it's gonna go down, and it's going down. It's been going down, and now it's just we have the opportunity to disseminate information at an almost instant pace. So it's like folks are catching it now, and you know, but so it's like once again I say like I'm doing good. I hope I pray that everyone else is out there is doing good as well. Amongst all this, that everybody has everything they need. You know, that those who are going without, that they might find some food today, that they might find some shelter, and you know, overall, just once again, I'm very extremely thankful for just being on the Milpa show today.
Yeah, I appreciate those comments. And I think también what you said now is like, you know, taking the time to reflect, taking the time to really network. And even Nick too, like acknowledging that all the issues that are coming across, they're all very interconnected, and we all somehow play a part in each other's lives, even though we don't really know that just yet, you know? So that interconnectedness and that way of like sitting and reflecting, you know, I find that we are also networking in a greater extent. You know, we actually continue to do the work even greater rates. You know, we're able to like network, you know, through Zoom with one another. We're able to like, you know, push policies, you know, through, or even like visit city council state meetings through our laptops and stuff like that, right? So like for you all that, you know, have the, you know, the privilege of being in the community, right, that's well organized, as well motivated, right, like MILPA, like Agents of Change, you know, what are some things that y'all are currently doing to continue that work during these times?
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, as you're saying, Arturo, like, you know, all these struggles are connected, and you know, I think we are at you know, pivotal moment, a crucial moment, you know, in our history. You know, given the climate-driven forest fires that's happening in our state, with the COVID-19 pandemic, you know, against the backdrop of systemic racism, mass incarceration, and over-policing of poor communities of color. You know, I think we have to, it seems like really big to take on, but if you see it's all as one issue, I think it becomes a little bit more manageable. So, you know, what Agents of Change is doing, you know, and the fact that there's so many, as you were saying, people already doing the work already, is just it's a matter of just building those bridges and creating that solidarity, so that way we build our power together, because we know that our strength is in our numbers, right? The more voices we have, the more impactful are our statements and our actions. So, you know, for Agents of Change right now, with the fires and the pandemic, you know, hitting our ag community the hardest, you know, I think, you know, I don't remember the statistics just off the top of my head, but, you know, I know that just looking at the COVID updates in Monterey County, and consistently since the start of the pandemic, our field workers, those in the ag industry, are the most affected compared to any other industry. And our Latinx people as well, you know, many of whom are undocumented and field workers as well. So we have to take care of the people who put food on our table. So we've been partnering with Flor Martinez. She's Flower in Spanish on Instagram, and she's collected massive amount of support from the community to gather masks as well as school supplies. You know, we talked to a lot of farm workers, and that was the one thing overwhelmingly that they requested support in, is just school supplies for their children. So I think it speaks to, you know, their selflessness and, you know, their value in raising their children and in education. So we've distributed, you know, I think the last count before I left on Monday was like 2,000. We have 10,000 more backpacks coming next week. We've partnered with UFW and Chinampa.bio on Instagram to distribute PPE as well. And really, Gardening 831 and other organizations are helping to provide fresh produce and other food for our farm workers. So that's one big project that we're working on as well. And then, there's been partnering with MILPA and We Bring Change and a lot of other different organizations around advocating for folks who are incarcerated, because there's, a COVID outbreak raging in Monterey County Jail. And there's one just starting in Soledad after a raid that targeted Black prisoners. So we're just demanding justice and action and transparency around all those things. Releasing prisoners so that way they could practice social distancing inside, and humane solutions for those who are inside to protect their health. So there's other things going on, but those are, at least for me, those are my two main projects happening right now.
As for myself, right here at the organization at MILPA, we sounded the call in March. We put out an op-ed and also listed demands of what to basically release people who are incarcerated at the county level, at the juvenile hall, and but also too at the state prisons, knowing that what was going to happen. And sure enough, it came to happen. There was an outbreak of COVID-19 in our Monterey County Jail. It literally, I think it was from I want to say the beginning of June, it was 1, and then it jumped to 6. Next thing you know, there's 200 people infected. And I'm not quite sure if it has either gone up or down. The Monterey County Jail has done efforts in releasing people. However, when keeping in mind, there's a lot of folks who are still locked up in the Monterey County Jail who can't afford bail. There's a lot of folks who are in county jail for violations of probation or parole. Once again, putting folks at risk for minor violations of parole or probation. And for us at MILPA, that's been actually something really big, because, and it's one of the biggest things that we're tackling on, based on the fact that, one, people don't deserve to be put in harm's way for any reason at all, right? And specifically when you don't really have control, and the ones that have control are the ones that are in and out of the county jail facilities, right? And so that's one of the biggest things also too, it doesn't mean you just because you're in there, you're not even proven guilty. Keep this in mind. A lot of folks have not been found guilty while they're in county jail. They just can't make bail. We are not rich. A lot of folks who are in there are not rich or do not come from wealth as other folks do, and hence they can't make it out, right? So really uplifting that and really advocating around the release of young people from the juvenile hall and the Monterey County Youth Center. The state in its entirety has done lackluster efforts in releasing people from the Division of Juvenile Justice, which is basically the state entity where they incarcerate people from all over the state, and there's 4 or 5 facilities, right? But also in our county, there has been little to no efforts. There's still young people are going in there for violations of probation for drinking. And we believe it's not only the being put at harm's way, potentially even being in a death sentence, but also the trauma, and not just to the young person, but to the whole family, just being separated during these crazy times. So really, we're really trying to advocate. There's another big push on our part to really get young people to be released, to stop, to have a moratorium on seizing all violations of probation and parole, a moratorium on status offenses, people being arrested for status offense, and the status offense only applies to minors, those for truancy. It can be a truancy, violations of probation, like I just stated before, and but also to not attending school, and et cetera, right? But those are some of the big ones, but also to monitoring our budgets. The budgets has been a big thing, after the murder of George Floyd. It's there was a lot of folks came together to really it's time to where we hold our city city officials, our county officials, our state officials accountable, and we want to see what we want them to invest in the gente and to invest in the people. We want to reallocate, defund, and push those funds from the police back into the community, but not just the police, because when we just target the police, that's just one part of the big thing. We need to target all law enforcement agencies that are continue to push that foot upon people of color's neck and keep them oppressed, right? And really provide shift those funds into things that are meaningful and they're going to help. It costs about $360,000 to incarcerate one youth, one young person in the state facility, what would the $360-something thousand really look like if we invested it into that one particular family? We're talking about potentially life-changing events for that one, not just that young person, but the whole family. And that's what we're trying to shoot for. We're trying to really make sure that our parks and recs and recreation department are being fully funded. Our behavioral health, our mental health are being fully funded. That there's an opportunity to really be able to really lift up those voices. And specifically at this time, as Nick had mentioned, like the farm workers, not only do they have to battle COVID, now they got to battle the fires. They're out there working through all the ashes. There has been warnings for folks to go inside. And there's 2 fires where we're at. There's one in Monterey County and there's one in Santa Cruz County. And everything's meeting right down the middle. So there's warnings telling folks to stay inside. It's bad to be out there. But you drive up and down this valley, and you'll see the farm workers out there. So really uplifting their voice, ensuring that they have the opportunity to, not fear being kicked out because of COVID from their house. They have the assistance for utilities and stuff like that. But so those are 2 of the big things, just making sure the release of our people from these county jails and state facilities is happening, but also to monitoring these budgets so they can be equitable, and not just equitable in that sense, but really show and budgeting our values, the values of our people throughout Monterey County and throughout the whole Salinas Valley. Say that much.
Yeah, thank you so much to both of you for sharing about what your organizations do, and make sure to anybody watching to check out Agents of Change on Instagram, and MILPA, you can go to milpacollective.org to check out our website and also our Instagram. But we do want to focus this conversation, and I'm glad that Edgar, you brought up the budget. So what can a youth or a community member watching this right now do to make their voice heard on how the budgets are shaped in their community? And we can start with you, Nick.
Yeah, so I think with youth in particular, especially if you're not of age to vote, if you live in a city and you live in a county, which everybody does, you have elected officials who represent you, regardless of whether or not you voted them into office. So, and there's avenues to connect with them, to pressure them. So that way, when it comes time to vote for the budget, or when it comes time to even, think about how we're allocating our budget, even before it becomes the vote, they need to be thinking about what your needs are as a youth. So, and it's so important for them to hear that firsthand. So, emailing all of their information, Agents of Change, MILPA, we just get it from the city websites, the county websites, and we post it on social media. So that way it's easier for you. But all this information is there. I was able to get their our city council cell phone numbers, their direct lines, and contact them. They're elected officials, since they're not in their offices normally, they carry on their cell phones and they're pretty available. So we have to keep pressure on our elected officials. So we have city council. If you're in Salinas, figure out who your district are, but call them all. It doesn't matter if they're in your district or not. Tell them that you want what services that you want. How do you want to be invested in? Versus criminalized, because that's what's happening right now, is that our youth, especially, our youth of color, our brown youth, especially in Salinas, are being criminalized because, our communities are starved and just the internal biases of law enforcement, so much disproportionate use of force, arrest and incarceration for Black and brown youth that's happening. And it's not Ferguson, it's not Minneapolis, or it's not even Oakland or LA. I mean, it is, and it's here in our city and in our county. So we have to protect ourselves and voice that. So I would say, the best thing for youth to do in particular is just keep calling, keep emailing, follow the orgs that we mentioned, Agents of Change, MILPA, Building Healthy Communities, so many others, Community Before Cops, Pause the Calls. All of these folks are putting together real solutions and real demands that will transform our communities in real ways. So the more voices we have, especially from our youth, the more elected officials will have to listen and act and construct a budget that reflects our values and how we feel that we need to be invested in, because this is a moment of crisis, like you said. Police and state violence, it's a long history and it's an epidemic still. So we have to address these issues.
Damn, Nick unloaded on that one. He's woo. I'm over all inspired. I'm ready to engage in stuff. And y'all, I ain't even gonna lie.
You fired me up, Edgar, with your last comment. So.
Hey, nah, it's real. But you know what? Even like trying to reach out to the young people. What can they do? You know, what can they do right now to get involved in these budgets? You know, there's going to be many times where, regardless of all the advocacy we do, it's not going to go our way, and we got to be okay with that. We're going to be persistent. And what I really want at my message is inform yourself, build that political consciousness, build that lens of like that critical lens, that critical consciousness that we're going to need moving forward. That's key right there as well, because then we get to read through between the lines and between the lines of bullshit. You know, when folks are just bringing us BS. It's election season. We're gonna hear BS. We're gonna be bombarded by BS through our cell phones, through the computers, through TV. We're gonna see it everywhere. We need to keep our eyes on the prize. Literally, that prize is those budgets. We need those budgets to reflect our values. So when I ask young people, like, or how can they get engaged? Navigate the website, just like we navigate Snapchat, Instagram, and the Twitter and Moco Space and MySpace. I'm not even sure if that's still around, but you know, I'll throw that out there. But navigate it, like literally, like take your time, 10, 15 minutes of what this website's all about. If you need help, there's organizations that are willing to help. Agents of Change, BHC, MILPA, BAC 2 and 12, CCA, other folks. There's different people that can help you with this. And just it's all about reaching out. We're one click away. Drop a hint in our Facebook's, Twitter accounts, and all that stuff. Hey, can you help me out with this? But it's really like not like we go to public education. We already know public education is still teaching us about the missionaries and how good they were. Like, come on, we just got to keep it real. Some of this education that we're getting is not going to help us. They're not going to teach us of when our city council and county meetings or board of supervisor meetings, what time they take place, who's our board of supervisors. They're not going to teach us all these things that we need to know. Who holds the power to really change our budgets, you know, to really make that change. And those are our board of supervisors and our city officials, right? And I bring that up because right now, during this election time, we're going to be distracted by the national level. This national level stuff is going to take precedent, and it's going to really populate our everyday existence. It's going to be from our Twitter, all that stuff, right? It's going to populate it. But we need to stay grounded in what's happening in our communities. We need to know what kind of ordinances are being passed. We need to know what kind of bills are going to be or propositions we can actually vote on at the state level. Thinking of Prop 15, you know, schools and communities first, where it's going to tax the estate tax and actually bring more money back into schools and communities. So it's like those are the things that I would tell young people to really focus on. We spend 15 to 2 hours scrolling through our Instagram stuff, just right there. And our badge just kind of going down, boom, boom, boom. Take 15 minutes on the website. That's all I'm asking, 10, 15 minutes. It's boring, but you know what? Some of this work, a lot of it's boring. The other day, I know Nick was on the call. We were at the board of supervisors for, we're on the Zoom call forever. Hey, and was it exciting? Well, for me it was. But you know what? I was just like, hey, some of it, but it's boring, but it's due diligence. You know, that's how they get us. They know that, if we elongate this meeting or we make it long and we bore them out, you know, they're not going to give their public comment. They're not going to be able to hold us accountable. Hence, sometimes we just got to stick with it. It's not the coolest thing to do. It's not the whole hype, everything that's going on. It's not the latest TikTok video, but you know what? We got to do it. So I ask the young people, like, get engaged. There's hella different organizations out there doing some work. And if you don't feel like and try out every organization. Go to every organization, learn from every single person in those organizations or in those movements, and think about, like, how can I take a little bit from over there and just apply it the way I want to, right? In the way it best needs me, but also focus that you are the future. You know, you are the future, literally. Like all the young people, like what you're gonna see is gonna be a whole different reality from what I saw when I was a kid. You know, and you gotta fight for that, because no one else is gonna fight for it. No one knows your lived experience as you do yourself. And that's the most important thing. And that's what makes you an expert, first and foremost. So just uplift that. Just because you're young, don't think that people are not going to listen. I think we're going to listen even more, because you're going to be leading us at one point or another. I know there'll be a lot of adults that'll be there and try to like kind of silence you. Oh, well, you don't know much. It's like, nah, you know what? We got to uplift your voice. So for me, my message to the young people is get involved regardless. This is a prime opportunity. We haven't seen this much movement throughout our nation in years. I want to say since probably the civil rights movement, but that's just as far as I can take it, But I would really encourage y'all to get involved. Not necessarily, if you're not the one that protest and it's all in them, okay. But hey, do you know how to break down data? Do you know how to make the coolest flyer? Do you know how to make the coolest infograph? Like, hey, get in where you're fitting. Provide your expertise to the movement and bring that in. And I think that's the most important thing. And there's always a chance, and we're gonna make a change regardless or not. And if it doesn't happen tomorrow or today, it's gonna happen, because it's too many of us. We're loud, when people are out there marching and they're yelling, it's loud, But it's only gonna get louder, y'all. And so that's my message to the young people: get involved. And specifically, learn about our budget system, the way it navigates. Learn about city councils and the county meetings. All that, and reach out to people. You're not alone. There's folks that like to, philosophize, politicize, chop it up about this stuff. That's all they do, y'all. So that's my message.
And thank you so much for like those empowering words. I feel like all of us are getting, really energized, from these conversations, And so for those that are tuning in, hopefully they feel as energized as we are, right? But also like, I know it takes a lot of work, and you really express that, Edgar, that it's really an intense journey of a lot of learning, a lot of networking, getting to know the right people, being involved and being eager to learn, right? And so, even, being that it takes so much energy, why is it important to really invest that energy? Why is it important for, you to really be engaged with that material and learn about the budgeting and learn about the city council meetings? Why is it important for them? Why should they invest in that kind of learning?
I guess, time is time, regardless of how we spent it, is an investment. We're not and that's one investment we're not going to get back. Monetary, money, and all this, it's like we can get it back and at one point or another, right? But time we won't get back. So if you spend a little bit of time educating yourself specifically and everything that has to do around the budget and how to advocate in your community, I think it's important, because keep in mind that a lot of us are privileged. We are citizens of these United States. We do have voting power, and sometimes we got to be able to speak up and get into action because others can't. And that's the reality. We have a lot of undocumented folks out there. We have a lot of formerly incarcerated folks who are on parole, or we have a record and are easy pickings for law enforcement or for the powers that be. So for young people to get involved, it's and start learning all these things is key and critical. It's critical. Go on your own learning journey. I can provide some information, some documents, some reading material, but everybody's learning journey, everybody's path is a little bit different. We create that path as we're going. And for now, to learn everything about the budget is, if you're tired of seeing what you've been seeing this whole time, and you really want to create change, you know what? We can go out there, protest and all that, but there comes a time after that. It's okay, what's next? There's always a what's next. Even after these budgets, what's next? After the protest, what's next? After everything, what is next? And that what is next question is important in how we answer it. And it's different for each and every one of us. And I think, and hence I say the importance of educating yourself, and not just around the county and the budget process and the political process, but building that political consciousness is key. Going back to your indigenous roots. And when I say indigenous, it just doesn't mean folks from this side of the world, right? Or the Americas. It's not from, like, before colonization went to Africa, before colonization stepped in Asia, before the white man went to any of these places, like, what did it really look like? How did those cultures flourish? And what were those core teachings? Go back to some of that. Ground yourself. This time is It's going to be hectic. It's going to be tiresome, and it's going to be long hours on Zoom, on computer. Hey, we just got to adapt. And our eyes and our heads going to hurt. But the best important thing is, like, we always say to our office at MILPA, before you can do the hard work, you got to be able to do the hard work. You know, you got to dive in deep into your own heart. You know, you got to figure out what's going on. And I say that because, you know, intergenerational trauma is real. We're starting to see that right now, you know, with the rise in domestic violence in the home, and, you know, all these things that are happening because of we being in our homes for so long it's starting to show up. So once again, I say it's like all this is important because you are the future. You need to invest in yourself. You need to invest in your community. You know, it's one thing to do everything for yourself, but what does it mean to do it for everyone else? Comandante Marcos, I think, says it best. That para nosotros nada, para ustedes todo. Right? He's saying for us nothing, but for y'all everything. Literally, you know, that was the Zapatistas kind of thing, and Marcos says that, and so I even think about that. It's like, yeah, like, you know what, the reality we might not see. You know, I might not see what I'm fighting for in my lifetime, but I know that my grandkids, you know, their kids are probably going to see it. So when I tell young people why it's important to invest, is, you know what? Because no one else is going to invest as the way you're going to invest in yourself. So, you know, point blank, you got to put it down for what you want. And that's it. Palabra.
Thank you, Edgar, for that. And for you, Nick, we pose the same question, essentially. You know, the dialogue on the city and the county budgets are expected to open again in October. And why should we care, especially young people?
Yeah, just want to, you know, amplify and echo Edgar in saying, you know, the time is now. I think about it like, you know, I constantly ask the question to myself, and it's answered, you know, more times than I would like. You know, it's like, when will the next George Floyd happen? When will the next Jacob Blake, Breonna Taylor, Sandra Bland? You know, I think Brenda Mendoza Rodriguez, who happened in Salinas, you know, she was going through a mental health crisis. And she was shot multiple times by Salinas Police Department. You know, it's however you identify, if you don't see yourself as an oppressed person who is constantly under attack by state violence, as Edgar was saying, you have to use that privilege, and really it comes down to, you know, what is our purpose? I think in this time of COVID, we say, I've heard this often, is that, you know, with everything shut down, or, you know, supposed to be shut down, is really we get to know what is really essential, and it's not the economy. You know, how we measure the wellness of our economy is like GDP, how big businesses are doing, you know, but really, what is our spiritual wealth? You know, individually and as a community. And I'm going to borrow some words from kinfolks of the Queer Arts Center in Oakland, who got this phrase from a philosopher whose name is slipping my mind, but it's like, we have to really, as Edgar was saying, is look internally and ask ourselves, what is our cosmological worldview? What is our existential purpose? And it's not to make money, to build capital, property, and wealth. It should not be. If we continue to do that, it's really, we're doing all the same that got us into this crisis in the first place. You know, global capitalism, the extraction of human labor, prioritizing profit over human lives. You know, there's so much data that says that, you know, climate change is what causes this pandemic, by humans being so in close proximity with different types of life that they normally have been, as well as, you know, rise in temperature and other things and global extinction that causes this. Same thing with the wildfires. And, you know, and it's like, our communities are being starved. Like, there's no empirical evidence, no data that shows that police violence, or, you know, investment in policing and incarceration makes our community safer. No empirical evidence. That means there's no data-driven evidence, right? It's a worldview based on white supremacy, and we have to call that out. You know, so we have to be on the right side of history here, and know that this fight is, as I was saying, it's inseparable from our own individual wellness, or introspective wellness, and spiritual wealth. Unless we're constantly working and fighting for, you know, our communities and for our own health, then it's like, what are we doing? So for me, it's like everything I do, my time with my family, you know, my income, my source of income, all of these things support my movement to better myself and my community. So it's about shifting our worldview and not asking like, what do I need? What do I want in life? It's how could I make myself and those around me and the environment better? I think those are the fundamental questions we have to ask ourselves constantly. And if you constantly ask yourselves that, then the work becomes easy. And you adjust, and as Edgar was saying, you make life adjustments for that purpose. So if we have that purpose and that vision in mind, it all becomes clear. And I think, we have a path forward with community and folks who are doing the work already.
Gracias, gracias. I don't have any other following questions. I don't know if Rosario, you have anything else you want to ask or add on?
Yeah, I would just say as a final question before the call to action is, and Edgar touched on this a little, but maybe you could elaborate more, Edgar. What do you feel the city and or county should invest in? So feel free to take it away.
Oh, definitely. And I think in this I missed this earlier, y'all, but it's okay, and you always get a second chance to say it. But I think what the county and the city should invest in, and I think the county took a practice step last Tuesday in particular. Luis Alejo, along with Chris Lopez and some of the other board members, really advocated to changing some of these CARES Act money, which was the county got about almost $45 million, almost. And they were able to reallocate from those $45 million, 9.2 was going towards the sheriff's department. And almost from those 9.2, they were able to reallocate $3.35 million back into the community, which really looked like $1 million to bridge the digital gap that impacting the whole county, specifically low-income people of color. Boom. Another $1 million to behavioral health. That's another big one. That's something that everybody's asking for money for mental health and behavioral health. Let me tell you, that the only way to actually achieve that is through the county. So if y'all want mental health services and behavioral health services, we need to advocate that through the county. Our cities do not fund those type of things, and they'll always drop the ball, like, oh, go ask the county. So that's something that was big. It was another $1 million towards rental assistance that was really, really important right now, as a lot of our folks are seeing the evictions actually taking place, and so that's something was really big. So that's $3 million, and then $250,000 towards utilities assistance, and $100,000 to cleaning up our area right now, when we've seen a lot of influx of people coming in and visiting some of these beautiful places in Monterey County, such as Big Sur, et cetera, right? So they were able to actually do that, and I think just highlighting that and really echoing that, it's a good step in the right direction. They did a good job in standing firm that and using that CARES money for that, which is super, super important. I would love to see that they actually do that with the budget. This was a smaller budget. It was CARES money, by the federal government, but I wish they would do that with the budget. One of the biggest things that the county can do is on-the-jobs training. We need more on-the-jobs training, and I know we're in COVID-19, but we need more of that, more of building relationships with unions to get people who are either formerly incarcerated or coming just from a situation where they don't have all that opportunity to have access to getting on-the-job trainings, to either becoming a plumber, electrician. A lot of these kind of like union jobs that are super important, and they're always around. Like right now, like if you live in the valley, I'm pretty sure you want some air conditioning. It's always going to be around. We're always going to need electricians, right? Plumbing. Shit, some of the plumbing in our cities is hella old, so we need plumbers. And they're good paying jobs, they're union jobs, right? Not everybody has to go to a university. So I would say like that's one big thing, on the job trainings, more money for mental health and behavioral health services, and that money to be specifically put for collaborations with community-based organizations. These community-based organizations know it. A lot of this money actually gets partnered with probation. So it goes to mental health or behavioral health, but they then partner with probation, and probation dishes out those services. We need that money to go back into our communities, and specifically community-based organizations that are actually ran by folks who are most impacted and that live within the area and know what's up. So that's another big thing. Focusing on our water, on just, Monterey County has one of the worst problems with water. It's not as clean as everybody thinks it is. We do have a lot of agriculture that takes place. So just think about that, all the runoff. But those are just some things that come to mind, but also, like, once again, reinvesting like into our young people. What would it look like to get young people an opportunity to be employed, and be able to create their own, like, have money in their pockets as well, specifically with COVID and all this thing that's going on. So that's just at the county level, right? And I would also really want to see the sheriff and the probation department be defunded. I would want to see the youth center, the Monterey County Youth Center, who has about less than 20 young people in there. Let's close that place down. And let's reinvest. And when we're talking about closing it down and reinvest, let's reinvest dollar for dollar what it costs to operate that place back into our community. And I'm talking about Monterey County wide, from Pájaro all the way to King City and San Lucas, and all the way to Seaside. So dollar for dollar reinvestment back into our community is key and crucial. And at the city level, once again, parks and recs, y'all. Like, right now, I've seen in multiple recreational areas that it's like they're charging young people for summer camps. Like, no, that's not right. We need to actually allow these things to be completely free. So yeah, I'll say that much, y'all.
Yeah, I think I could speak a little bit more to Salinas City budget, since Edgar talked about the county. The Salinas City budget, which I believe was passed in late June, it's kind of how Agents of Change, kind of came together. That was our first campaign, is to try and advocate for the allocation of money away from Salinas Police Department and into community programming, as Edgar was saying. Right now, the Salinas City budget whole is 45% of the entire city budget. That's almost half. That's almost $53 million. So we have to think about, what are, and really policing only addresses, what I call symptoms, not the symptoms or causes. It's like so we have to look at the root. It's like, why is crime happening? Usually it's because, as Edgar was saying, is, a cycle of trauma and abuse that happens in families, neglect and lack of a sense of belonging for our community members, particularly our youth. So if we invest in these services that empower our youth, like things like ethnic studies, sports, arts, music, just a good foundational education. So that way they can have that critical lens, as Edgar was saying, will help them gain a knowledge of self and gain self-determination as well. So that way when it comes time to engage in, risky behavior or whatever it is, they can make that right decision. And on top of that, I think we have to, I have to be careful with my language. Agents of Change is kind of on the spectrum between, defunding the police and reform. But, speaking personally, I agree with Edgar. We have to defund the entire police budget. Is that a likely ask for it to happen? No, but we have to continue to have this conversation, because that's the end goal and the only way that we could eradicate the system of perpetual violence in our communities. And it goes down to the fact that it was, founded on the ideals of white supremacy, and the fact that it criminalizes Black and brown youth and poor people, and those who are addicted to drugs, and things like that. So we have to reframe our language about how we talk about crime as well. And I think reallocating our budget away from police into community service that truly believe that folks who are seen as criminals are really just people who need support and services. They're people in need. So, and those community programs like MILPA, Building Healthy Communities, so many others that we mentioned, know what communities need. We know how to raise our children. We know how to take care of folks who suffer from addiction and mentally ill folks, or we partner with the professionals who do. So And there's already programs within our budget, like, library and community service and community development, housing and community development. These are departments within our city that are just so starved and underfunded. The structures are already in place. They just need the resources to be able to be more effective and provide the supports that the community needs to be really healthy.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you both. And I'm thinking about even my own organizing that I've done here in Hayward, and it's oftentimes people that are low income, children of immigrants themselves that don't know how to navigate the local and county resources or to be even able to advocate. Sometimes there's a language barrier. And so it's like, how do we ensure that the people that are most affected by the way that the budget is or the way that the society is, they're able to make a change and make an impact in how things are revamped, essentially, right? But a lot of people that are in power, like I think that they misunderstand people of color. And I know here in Hayward, there's like we're like 32% Mexican, 40% Latino. We have people from all over the world, Samoa, Tonga, Philippines, China, right? And so it's just interesting how those are the people that are most, I don't know, left behind, right? And even thinking about like who does the artwork around Hayward, it's usually the same. From what I've understood, it's like usually the same white lady that like does all the artwork in Hayward, like the murals and stuff like that, right? And so I just share that much because I'm more familiar with Hayward, but I know it could be similar in Salinas, in places where like just Monterey County, where there's a lot of farm workers and a lot of those folks are so busy just trying to survive that when are they going to have time to go to a city council meeting, especially if no one's getting paid like necessarily to go give a public comment. And sometimes you have to wait like 2 hours or however long to give a freaking public comment, and it could be very frustrating. So, and I know, you will have all experienced that of like having to wait for the agenda item and just having to go through that whole process. But with that, before I get into the call to action, is there anything else that you had, Arturo, for our guests?
No, but I also want to make a quick comment too. Like when it comes down to funding as well, a lot of nonprofits have to like compete against each other to get instead of the funding that they need, right? And I think that's not fair. That is creates a kind of an atmosphere where we are not collaborating as well as we should. So I think by our counties or just our communities, right, investing more in like nonprofits and community-based organizations, then we are able to do our job at a greater ease and with more willingness to collaborate and build with one another, right, and not against one another. So that's just my last only comment that I had.
Can I add something real quick, y'all?
Yeah.
And I bring this to light that our Monterey County in the Salinas Valley is rich. We have a $5.4 billion agricultural industry in our backyards. We're freaking rich. Being mindful that a lot of that produce doesn't stay here. We still have the problems in accessing good food. That's actually a real big thing here. You go into most of our communities, you're lucky if you see a Whole Foods. You got to go to Monterey, Santa Cruz, or some shit like that. So just like keeping that in mind, but also understanding that the whole concept of incarcerating people has been in Monterey County for a long time. We've had Soledad Prison been here since the 50s. We had Salinas Valley that was built in the 90s. Monterey County just extended a brand new an expansion to the county jail. We just built a new juvenile hall that it was considered an amazing win. The police department, I've never seen government work this efficiently to build a brand new police department, y'all. I swear to God, I've never seen that in my life. I've never heard of it. But the Salinas Police Department got a brand new freaking Winterfell looking freaking police department, state of the art and all that stuff. And sorry for my Game of Thrones reference, but it was really big and right in the entrance to the east side, right? So it's to really think about like where they're investing their money and just the policing, the law enforcement aspect, and just the history that's been here, right? But this community is rich in culture, rich in land, and always recognizing and uplifting the original peoples of that land too. That sometimes that are forgotten. The Esselen Nation folks, Salina Nation, and just all those people. Just wanted to just mention them too before I forgot. And because sometimes we get caught up in just the advocacy and stuff, but we forget to pay respects to the original people of this land, and just thinking about wherever the descendants are. Hopefully they have everything they need, and knowing that there's folks that are going to be fighting for them as well. And I know that for a fact, and so wanted to bring those things to light and just not forget about it. So, palabra.
Yeah, thank you so much, Edgar, for sharing that. And thank you both for being with us today. Just as my final question, as we like to end on a call to action, what's your call to action to young people, to the youth of Salinas and the wider Monterey County? And you might have already answered this, but this is just more of a focused, call to action. Like, what can people do right now? What can young people do right now to get engaged?
Want me to start it off? As you were saying, is getting to know your city council members and your board of supervisors. As Edgar was saying, city council members, they determine how your city tax dollars are spent, and county is the county budget, or the board of supervisors is the county budget. So getting to know who these individuals are, where they stand on certain issues, is really important. And coming to the meetings, board of supervisors happens every Tuesday at 10:30 is when public comment opens. As you were saying, sometimes you have to be on that call for a long time. So kind of adapting your day on Tuesdays to make room for that. Like things that I do, some advice that I have is that I download Zoom on my phone, and then I just put my headphones in, and I go about my day, working from home, or, running errands or whatever it is. And, I'm listening in, and when it comes time to speak, it's like, Nick Musni, we're going to unmute you. And then that's when you say what you have to say. Following these organizations like MILPA, Building Healthy Communities, Pause the Calls, Community Before Cops, so many others, and I'm sure Huelia Gardening, 831. So we have so many organizations who are kind of putting out calls to action every week, almost every day. So really answering those, like sending an email, calling your local officials. It only takes about 5 minutes, especially, with the resources like MILPA and Agents of Change. We have email templates and things like that. We try to make it as easy as possible for you guys. So make sure you answer those calls to action. And then one thing I did forget to mention is, like, in your demands is there's, as we think about the budget and how we want to reallocate, kind of going back to our last question, there's the Alisal Vibrancy Plan that I did want to mention. Is that this is that I learned from Cesar of MILPA and Omar of Chinampa, is this is a huge community-led plan to revitalize Eastside. In the Alisal district, we revitalized the south side in Salinas, but what about the east side? And it's really just basic things like city infrastructure, like crosswalks, cleaning the bathroom in our parks, but also real community support, like health services and things like that. So it's a really robust program that will uplift the entire community to the point where we could take care of ourselves, and we don't need cops coming in to infiltrate our communities and continue to perpetuate this cycle of violence, as we've been saying. And another thing that I did want to mention is Pause the Calls. Miriam Smith, who's working, both out of Seaside and Salinas, they put together this really robust alternative to policing and first response. And they're adapting proposals for every city. So when you call your city officials and your, and our county board of supervisors, is really kind of highlighting these two things, I think are really great places to start. But MILPA, you all have a bunch of wonderful, just thorough and compassionate demands. So I guess I'll pass it off to Edgar now.
Definitely not. I'm gonna echo everything that Nick just said. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. There's already organizations that got a lot of these, the framework and the foundation already set. The digging, it's already been done, but I encourage each and every one of young, older, everybody who wants to get involved, do that digging for yourself. It's nothing like just discovering this thing for yourself, because it's a process that also infuriates in a good way. Why is it so hard to navigate a damn website? Like, why is it so hard? Was it intentionally? So you start asking all these questions. So please do your own digging yourself. But it's already been done. And if y'all want the templates, if y'all want the numbers, we got all that. So hit us up, get involved. Like Nick said, there's many organizations throughout the whole area, throughout the whole Monterey County that they're doing the work. So please get involved. And there's going to be calls to action coming about. At MILPA, we have youth programs such as Sembrando la Milpa. It's a 6-week program where, hey, we're bunkered down on the things that are going to help us to do this movement work. It's not a campaign work, y'all. A campaign is very time-limited. Movement, it's almost infinite. We're going to continue to do this regardless of the fact, right? The movement's going to continue to happen. But in these workshops, we explore what culture means and how do we actually organize from a healing and cultural organizing perspective. We're really going back to our traditional ways of looking at life and community, but also consciousness, really falling back on the teachings of George Jackson, Geronimo Pratt, Ashada Shakur, and folks, who really inspired us. A lot of us at MILPA do have that formerly incarcerated background. And a lot of us were politicized in the inside by these folks' readings and teachings. So, and the movement building is like, well, what's your part? How do you play a role? So that's one part of just like one of the many programs that we got running. We do got young women's circles. We got a man's circle that's going on, a man's talking circle. And these are moments to engage, but for your own personal healing as well. Because like I said, in order to do the hard work, you got to do the hard work. So, if you want that space, there's always spaces that we're going to be holding for folks, to kind of to peer into that healing journey, what that might look like for each and every one of us. But the budgets, y'all, like it's something that I really want everybody as a call to action. Please monitor our Facebooks and all our social medias for MILPA. We're going to be having calls to action like no other. Y'all going to get tired of us. Y'all going to probably say like, I'm over it. Stop it. Kick MILPA out of Facebook or Instagram and all that stuff, right? But you know what? We're fighting for our people here, and we really want to see that change. We want to bring all the resources. We want to have just as much resources as they did, or even more, to succeed in this life, and not just from a wealth perspective, but hey, we just want to live comfortably. We just want to be cool. And that's what we want for everybody, So that's my call to action for y'all. Get involved with any organization, hey, and do your own digging, do your own research, read those books. Nobody likes to read. Listen to it. If you don't like reading, listen to an audiobook. If you don't like, watch a video, like something that's thought provoking in these times. Don't just allow Twitter and Instagram and Facebook to take over, even though at times there's a good information, but there's other things that you can be doing. So get involved, y'all. And it's like, at the end of the day, if you need templates, we got them. If y'all need the phone numbers, we got those too. If you want to actually see a public speaking skills, we can dabble in that too, So I just want to say that. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Any final words, Arturo?
Now, just for everybody that's tuning in again, appreciate y'all sticking throughout this conversation. I think it's very rich and like information, resources, and just thoughts of how you could be involved too. So make sure that y'all stay following Agents of Change, MILPA, this podcast, and just know that there's a lot of great individuals out there too that you could also look up to as mentors within this kind of work. And so with all that, I'm gonna be passing it down to Rosara for any last words.
Samesies. I was really tired before we started, and right now I'm still tired, but I'm very much energized by y'all's conversation, and I'm looking forward to just the work that we're going to continue to do. Edgar mentioned our public speaking club, which we're going to be doing shortly, and so if you want to be a part of that, we did it for internal MILPA folks, but if you feel like you want to work on your public speaking, on your writing, we're here to help in however way we can, right? And so feel free to get in touch with us. And so with that, I want to thank both of our guests. We have Nick Musni from Agents of Change, and we have Edgar Ernesto Ibarra Gutierrez from MILPA. So thank y'all. Have a wonderful Friday. Peace out.